All right, welcome everybody. It is the first week of the Fantasy Empire during the regular season. So, what an amazing weekend, guys. I know Chris and I were out in Vegas, and for me, it's just simply the best, most fun possible weekend you can have while drafting. Just love the live events. Drafting online is a ton of fun too, but drafting in person just makes all the difference in the world. And Nelson is so mad that he just left.
Nelson bailed already, huh? He didn't like your opening, Dan.
I guess not.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't get to go to Vegas this year, but I did get to go to the GST Friday in New York City. Chris and Joe, hell of a day, hell of an event they hosted for us, and I think saved NFFC New York City.
I appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, thank you for saying that. That was one of my two highlights as well, guys, was this last 10 days before opening NFL Sunday is always a blur for me. And, this year, no different. Getting the New York drafts off and having a great day with so many familiar faces coming into New York City and doing auctions and drafts for 12 hours straight in my bar was unbelievable experience. I loved it. The feedback was great. I appreciate everyone that showed up and threw compliments at us. Even in Vegas, people were talking about it. And then to get on the plane and go out to Vegas and spend an unbelievable 5 days with so many friends and dinners and drafts all day and night. It's just a great 10 days. Loved it all. Talk about it more, but I won't for the sake of the show. And then we sit down and we get a week 1 NFL like we did, which was basically like preseason week 4. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the Empire head-to-head that Chris and I had on Saturday afternoon. Chris was in the 11 hole, I was in the 10 hole, so that was a lot of fun in one of the NFFC prime times.
Why don't you tell everybody how you sniped me on Drake London? I put myself in the 11 hole. I wanted the 10th pick in that draft that Dan was drafting next to me with my sights set on getting my Drake London share. And then I got the 11th pick, and sure enough, when Dan was in the 10 hole right before me, I said, well, I guess I'm not getting Drake London, this draft. And sure enough, he sniped me.
Yeah, I had to do what I could there. I was also short on London shares. I was having trouble getting them over the weekend, so that was one of my final drafts. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to just go ahead and jump in here and do it. So, Nelson, how did things go for you?
Same thing that Chris said. It's kind of a blur at this point. It was catching up on sleep. A lot of drafts the final week. But
Nelson, have you slept in 2 weeks?
Man, I was on fumes Sunday. I did not sleep. Like maybe like an hour I got, because between just having to do fab, drafting teams at the same time, and then setting lineups and everything, it was an exhausting day. So I kind of caught up on sleep yesterday.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because we go out in Vegas and then that Wednesday night hits and everybody is there, starting to draft, and everybody's like, oh my God, we got to do our waivers for Wednesday night. Everybody does hours of waivers. You start drafting for another couple days, and then you look up and you're like, wait, it's Saturday. We have to do waivers again to get ready for, Sunday, drop some kickers and stuff like that. Cover yourself from the Thursday night games. And it was just one big blur. And then Sunday comes and the games kick off, and here we are. So
yeah, it was brutal Saturday night because I streamed a lot of kickers defenses. Yet we had the free look right in the tournaments. So Kansas City kicker defense, Chargers, and everything. So.
I kept all the kickers. Sidebar. Don't worry, people at home. We're not going to talk kickers, but for that free look, I kept all the kickers. I took the Chargers 10.5 points, the Chiefs and 12.5 points. The Philly one, 9 points, was questionable, but I kept that too.
I made sure I added Cam Little and Tyler Loop everywhere I could that I didn't have them already.
There you go, little Cam Little. Everyone's darling out in Vegas.
You hit 70 yards.
And New York.
All right, guys. Well, let's all go around and dig into the week 1 games a little bit. Talk about what we saw that was noteworthy, not noteworthy. Any observations that you have. Let's all go around once, and we'll probably have to break for an ad real quick after that. But Nelson, why don't you go ahead and start us off? What'd you see week 1?
Well, going back to the Friday game, I was really surprised by the Pacheco usage with Kansas City. They went right back to Kareem Hunt being involved, especially on passing downs. They mixed in the rookie a little bit, Brashard Smith. So that was definitely like a guy like I wasn't really on Pacheco, but like he kind of fit my builds of like how I was building teams, kind of wide receiver heavy. And then he's kind of like, it was him and a couple other guys that were going like in the 6th round. And Pollard would be one.
Well, hold on one second, Nelson. Being that you mentioned Pacheco, can we just talk about that real quick with the Chiefs? Do you see my takeaway from that game was Brashard Smith probably has a role sooner than I thought. It's beyond the pines. You got to look. It's not going to happen immediately. But if Worthy's out, they need a dynamic player somewhere in that offense, which they lacked. So that's why I just wanted to bring that up. What were your thoughts?
Well, that's what I'm saying is like my thoughts were that I thought Pacheco was kind of like a locked-in safe option as an RB2, and that wasn't the case after that game.
Right.
And I'm just glad that I kept missing him in drafts leading up to that game. And then all day Saturday, I just avoided him. Like to me, he's like,
I thought he would fall further after that game on late Friday night and Saturday, because I thought he looked terrible in terms of the usage and everything, Nelson. And you're right, for our build, the way and Nelson, looking at your drafts all summer, and we had the same strategy in a way. It was try and get one locked in running back early, and then go into that 6th, 7th, 8th round and go get your RB2. And it was all the same names. It was the Pacheco, the Pollards, the Jaylen Warrens, the Travis Etiennes, Tyrone Tracy's. Like those make up all my RB2s on most of my builds, because I had to hit the receivers all in those middle, those rounds 2 through 5. So like you, Nelson, I landed on Pacheco, a grenade in my eyes once or twice only. I wasn't in on him. But sometimes he fell, and I said, all right, I'll take the volume as my RB2. I didn't like what I saw at all. I regret even having a couple shares. It could turn around, but, the arrow was pointing down on Pacheco. I didn't like the usage, and I didn't like how they mixed in Hunt and Smith as much as they did.
Yeah, I felt like, on Saturday, it was almost like, hey, if I'm going to get a Kansas City running back, I'm just going to grab Brashard Smith and or Kareem Hunt late. I mean, the Hunt pick is so gross, but on the other hand, he looked about as good as Pacheco. So
which isn't saying much.
Yeah, exactly. But, somebody's got to get the volume there, and if they're not going to give it to Brashard Smith early, Hunt might have usage for a handful of weeks here. And at that price tag, it was like, oh, if I'm looking for something late that might be able to actually contribute into my lineup instead of just being a total lottery pick, that was kind of where I went. All right, let's see. Who wants to go next? Let's have
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Matt.
My takeaway was elite usage that was saved by one play. And I just focus on 2 games here, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland, Cincinnati. Bijan and Algier in the run game were 10 to 12 in the rush attempts. Bijan with that beautiful, sick opening play early on with the 50-yard catch. Again, he's dynamic. The receptions saved him as they did with other, high-end running backs like Gibbs got, 10 for 30 or something like that, something crazy.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
The Bucky Irving had elite usage as well, but again, it was a great touchdown run that, pass, actually, I think it was 9 yards. I think he had 8 yards receiving all day where he made that dive into the end zone. But again, a day that you think it was a smash for Bucky, it was the touchdown that saved his elite usage. And in that game, Drake London, he had 15 targets, 8 receptions for 55 yards. That's great. You want to see those targets. I'm going to lead a little caution here. I know everybody loves Drake London. I think he's in a smash spot too. But if Kyle Pitts is going to see volume, if Mooney comes back healthy next week, and if London is going to miss a game, Mooney was really good last year. And in the games he played with London, you can go back and look at that. So I think,
What's the caution about, though, Matt, with London? He's an elite wide receiver, 1 and a big time.
And he had 15 targets. He got 8 receptions for 55 yards. I don't think that is something that I'm going to be like, really,
Well, okay, I hear.
I don't know.
What did Jamar Chase do?
Yeah. How about this? What did every wide receiver want to do?
I can do that for everybody.
Everyone busted.
Yeah,
and I'm set, but again, he had 15 targets, got 8 receptions. That was like, that was like a Hollywood Brown. I mean,
so wait, is that bad or good? I'm trying to understand what you mean.
My point being is, it's great that he got 15 targets. He got 8 receptions for 55 yards, and Darnell Mooney was not playing. That to me is not a great sign. If Mooney comes back healthy, Mooney was very productive last year. Look at the games where Mooney and London played. So late in the season when London went off with Penix. Mooney missed 1 game and I think left another game early. So, I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying Drake London sucks and he's not going to be good, but I think that's warranted right there. Egbuka, extremely impressive. That last play, supposedly, Evan said he called it in the huddle. He wanted that pass play. He said, I'm taking it to the house, winning this game. And in the Cleveland game, real quick, Chase Brown, elite usage, that opening drive. He got that touchdown run. But again, I'm a big Chase Brown fan too. It was saved by that touchdown. As we mentioned before we went on, the Bengals had 7 yards in the second half.
Oh, that game was a complete shit show. Throw it out if you're a Bengals fan.
Okay.
You got to throw it out.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just pointing out elite usage versus one play. And the last thing that I noticed was Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson had an opportunity, and I believe he carved out a role. Yes, Judkins is their second-round pick. They got to justify taking him there, and he's going to get a lot of work. But to me, Sampson, he had an ADOT of negative 3.6. He had 64 yards. What was it? I'm going to make this right. 64 yards receiving and 93 yards after the catch, and he looked really good in the passing game. So he's a weapon. Those are my takeaways for my first point.
Okay, I'm going to hit this one up. The Breece Hall, Braylon Allen debate all summer long was a farce. A lot of us got sucked into the trap of, oh my God, Braylon Allen is the one, and Breece Hall is just going to mix in here. And we started the summer off. Breece Hall was a 3rd rounder. By the time we got to Vegas, he was going in the 6th round of a lot of drafts, making it to 60th overall plus. I'm just sick because I was in on Breece Hall in August here. I wanted to get as many shares as I could. I never got any shares of Breece Hall. The games come out on Sunday. Breece Hall looks fantastic. I don't want to throw that league winner, motto around, but if you built wide receiver early and then hit Breece Hall late 5th, early 6th, I think you are in for a huge season. Breece Hall looked great. I think he's going to be a top 12 fantasy running back, maybe even top 7, 8. He could produce, and I think that the Braylon Allen is just going to mix in here and there. He's not going to be the lead guy at all. Breece Hall's too talented, and that's my first takeaway. Was we had 2 running backs falling down the draft boards from July into September. That was Ken Walker and Breece Hall. Everybody went running from the 2 of them. They made them a 5th and 6th rounder in Vegas. And one looks like he's in big trouble and it was warranted that he fell down the board. And the other one looks like it was, fool's gold.
I think
what you and Maddie just spoke on. So Maddie touched on Sampson and you touched on Breece Hall.
Yeah.
And 2 things that happened was the reporting, on the running back usage and what those backfields were going to look like. Wasn't there a report that Jerome Ford was going to be the bell cow back for Cleveland?
Well, they said he was going to start. I don't know about bell cow.
It was something like he was going to start, but I could have sworn there was he was going to be the guy. It was they were very bullish on Ford. And then the talk all summer long was Breece Hall, Braylon Allen they're gonna mix in or whatever. And it comes Sunday, that did not happen. So that's another takeaway from what you guys are talking about is just the report. If you chase all these reports or whatever, it's bad for business.
I think Breece Hall, the most impressive thing to me was that burst was back. That's
the
what
burst.
I was
oh my God!
I was skeptical.
Jumped off the TV screen. He really that was the most impressive thing. Was he just looked fantastic, looked fast, looked like the fastest guy on the field.
He's going to get paid next year.
Yeah. You can tell it's a contract year. He did look fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw out a couple guys that didn't look fantastic and kind of get you guys taking the temperature on these. One of them, he's the cover boy for today's show, the Invisible Mandrews. He was just almost non-existent, in a game that threw out, 81 points or something like that. I mean, it's just, he got one target, 1 catch, 2 yards. It was just, there was nothing there. And the other one is A.J. Brown, who completely disappeared. I mean, you can say Devonta Smith disappeared too, but A.J. Brown really did a disappearing act, I thought, on Thursday night. So what do you guys think about those two? Worried, not worried? Where you at?
I'll start off with Andrews. Here we go again, Dan. Deja vu. If you remember a year ago, at this time, Mark Andrews fell asleep in September. And then he came on strong. Now, I think we were hoping it'd be the other way around this year because he came into camp healthy and Isaiah Likely is out for a little bit early in the season. So we hope that Andrews would jumpstart. But, Dan, you were out in Vegas. Matt, Nelson, you were in New York. Nobody wanted Mark Andrews. Every draft, he was the guy that fell at the tight end position. And, it was like setting a trap. Like, are you going to step into the trap? I know I did. I stepped into the Mark Andrews trap. I wanted no part of Mark Andrews this year. I have 1 share. Unfortunately, it's on a big team, and it was 131 overall to the point where I said, all right, I just have to take Mark Andrews in the hope I'm wrong at 131 overall and, be my backup tight end. So it's not going to hurt me, but I think the cliff has come for Mark Andrews and Father Time has come. And even in that offense, with all the weapons, he's not going to be able to eat enough. But let's see if it turns around like it did for him last year.
Okay. For me, A.J. Brown, just getting back to him, Jalen Hurts had 1 pass, I believe, over 9 yards. That was the Dotson deep play. That was just I mean, passing game wise, I thought this team would definitely rebound and throw more. We'll see if that changes, but I'm going to assume maybe A.J. Brown is not 100% with the hamstring injury he had pretty much all camp. So I'll give him the mulligan for that one.
Yeah, that's my takeaway is I wasn't in on Andrews, so I don't really have a strong opinion on that one. More, I guess, not don't have a strong. I just don't care because I don't have Andrews. He wasn't a target of mine. And then with AJ Brown, he wasn't necessarily a target of mine, but I am going to say that watching that game, he didn't look like he ever opened up on any routes. So I'm thinking that's the hammy issue. Once for me, my biggest takeaway, I try not to be too much of a baby when I'm drafting and like scared off by like injuries in the preseason, but it is a factor for me. And I hate guys that get injured late in the preseason and training camp because I feel like it kind of drags into the season. And AJ Brown was that guy that, I just I just let pass.
And you're an AJ Brown guy, Nelson, correct? I mean, in past years, that's one of your guys. I have zero AJ Brown shares. He was a full fade for me in the second round, to the point where I had Jackson Smith and Jigba, NT Higgins over him on the board. So I was never going to take AJ Brown. I didn't like the hamstring. I didn't like, I don't even like the offense. I still stick to this. I don't like watching the Eagles games with Jalen Hurts throwing. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. I didn't really want any, AJ Brown. So
everything is that offense is like everything's up the middle. He doesn't throw to the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's just you're running up and down the middle. You're throwing up and down the middle. Like Goddard is probably going to have a pretty good year, maybe.
Yeah, he's going to be a 7 for 40 every week.
But healthy.
His 5-yard dump off catches, because that's what Jalen Hurts does. But at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts is never get there. With his rushing, his QB sneak, his push, his tush pushes. He gets there, but it's a frustrating way to get there watching those games. It is not wide open football. And you can see why A.J. Brown's frustrated in this offense and why he hates Jalen Hurts. He'll be fighting on the sideline with him real soon again.
Just because we're talking about this game, could we bring up I still think Pickens is going to have a really good year, but being out targeted by Ferguson, is that an issue for anybody?
A little bit. I mean, part of it is, I think the Eagles' cornerbacks are pretty good, so that may have something to play into it. So I'm not horribly worried about Pickens. Like I picked him up a couple times when the price dropped after the game.
I like that. I like what I saw out of Dallas's offense. Honestly,
I thought Dak looked really good, even though in the box score it didn't work out fantasy wise. I thought he looked really good to me.
Real good. I went in on him even heavier. Dak is one of my top 2 owned quarterbacks this year, which I was trying to get everywhere. And then, I knew on Friday and Saturday in live drafts that he was going to fall 2-3 rounds because of given 7 fantasy points or whatever it was. People were going to shy away. That made me jump in harder on him because I loved what I saw. Same thing with Pickens. A little worried because it was all Lamb. It was like Lamb, heavy target. You'd like to see more from Pickens in terms of the target game, but he did have 1 pass interference, another deep ball that he could have caught. So the numbers could have been a little differently. Dak's numbers should have been a lot different if Javonte didn't fall into the end zone twice. But the Dallas offense, I liked what I saw. It was what I expected all summer long. So no issues there.
Awesome. All right, guys, let's get a quick break in, and then we'll come back with some more stuff here. Good stuff so far.
I know you're sad draft season is over, but just because the NFL season starts doesn't mean the drafting stops. Because Fast Draft has the Flex 6 Frenzy. You're drafting 6 guys for the Sunday slate against 9 other competitors. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun. And as with everything on Fast Draft, there are no salaries. Woo! So go to draftfaster.com, get the app, use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
All right, guys, we're back. Nelson, what do you got? What else did you see?
I'd probably say that I like the fact that for me personally that this worked out was my targets at running back. Like we were talking about Pacheco, like I was a guy, like I just wasn't getting him. He was going a little bit earlier than where I wanted to take him. So I pushed it back even further with running backs, and I was in on Etienne, Dobbins, Javonte Williams before the Thursday game with Javonte, and then also even after that, because he was kind of like 9th, 10th round in some drafts. So I ended up getting a lot of him, and then after that game, I needed to make the decision of like, okay, am I content with 9th round Javonte Williams, or am I willing to push him up? And every time he was there in the 7th round, I was taking him because
wow, I'm surprised at that, Nelson. Go ahead.
To me, Chris, like I made the determination that 2-round difference had like no impact. When you're getting that low, it's not like I'm like 4th round guy to a 2nd round guy. I'm like 9th to 7th. I'm like no difference. And I looked at Javonte, the usage. I loved what I saw from that game, and I didn't think Sanders looked very good. So I worry about Blue that eventually he's going to get involved in
that was a surprise
in the game
inactive. Yeah, that was a surprise.
Inactive, but I'm thinking rookie, missed a lot of camp with his ankle sprain and everything. So I wasn't big on Blue, taking the job, but I think eventually he'll get worked in. But
so you're looking at Javonte more of a volume play because I didn't love what I saw out of him in that game, and without the 2 touchdowns, it's 6 or 7 fantasy points.
So obviously it helped with Jaylen Carter getting kicked out right at the start of the game, but
wild start to that game.
The Eagles are one of the best defenses against running back last year. So I thought he looked pretty good, actually. I had it the other way around.
Yeah, I took, after the game, and after the Friday game especially, I took Javonte Williams and put him right into Pacheco's place. And then after the Friday game, I took Pacheco completely off my draft board. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. Even if he falls to the 11th round, I think I'd rather, be taking Bashal Tutin or somebody like that than wasting money on Pacheco.
Okay.
Yeah, so my key takeaway, Chris, what I was trying to say was to finish off is a lot of those running backs that were going in the later rounds, I felt like are for week 1 got the usage that I was looking for to kind of one up the drafters that were taking early running backs, and I was taking the early wide receivers because to me with fantasy, talent matters, but like at the end of the day with running backs, to me, I just care about usage. I want a guy that is going to be playing on passing downs, 3rd downs. He's going to release out of the backfield, and have opportunities to catch passes, and hopefully they're also the goal line back. If I'm getting that type of usage, like that's all I care about. Like that's what equals fantasy points. I don't necessarily care too much about the name or if he's that great talent wise. I might have an opinion that I don't think he's that good. Javonte Williams, I don't think he's that great. I've never drafted him over the years, but to me, it made sense. Like Dallas offense, I'm all in on them. I'm heavy Dak, heavy CD. I like Pickens. I like Ferguson. And I'm like, Javonte is probably the starting running back on this team. Why is he going in the 9th round? So to me, like, I thought there was a discrepancy there.
Okay, so let's pick up off there on this topic because I want to mention a couple other backs. You throw Javonte in that 7th, 8th round range. My guy was Jaylen Warren. All in on Jaylen Warren. I thought that he was probably the most mispriced running back. And then, week one happens, he scores and everything. But what I thought it was two-folded, honestly. Let's back it up. I thought Caleb Johnson really wasn't going to play a major factor in this offense early on. I thought from July that Jaylen Warren was going to be the lead dog, and he was going in the 9th round, and he was the perfect fit for all my teams to get a guy that was going to have heavy volume in a decent offense, relied on, that could catch the ball out of the backfield. And when I could build all my teams and then put a Jaylen Warren as my RB2, whether it was draft or auction for like $10 or less, it was the perfect fit. So my Jaylen Warren bags are completely stacked. He's on so many of my teams. I was not, with that all being said, I was not thrilled with what I saw on Sunday. Kenneth Gainwell is, here I am. Everybody's thinking Caleb Johnson. And then out of nowhere, you get blindsided by Kenny Gainwell playing way too much for my liking. It was like a 55-45 split from my eyes of what I saw. So I don't think Caleb Johnson's going to play a role early in this season, maybe the first half, but Kenny Gainwell's there, so it's not as much as I wanted. To the flip side of this, though, Nelson, another running back that we were targeting, I think was the biggest winner for week one is Travis Etienne. And I think Travis Etienne, I wish I had more shares of him after draft season. I have a good amount, but Etienne looks like that running back that was completely mispriced on the board. Could have been like a 5th-round talent, especially now with them shipping out Bigsby. It's going to be him and Tootin. And he was great. He was the one guy that really stood out to me as well on Sunday. And if you have Etienne as your RB3 or RB2 on a heavy wide receiver build, you're definitely smiling this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That leads perfect into my second observation. I looked at 4 rookie running backs that were either inactive, looked maybe overwhelmed, or didn't really do much, but I think they're in great spots to build continuously throughout this season. That's Cam Scatterboo for the Giants, Jaden Blue for the Cowboys, Bashal Tootin with the trade yesterday, and Rashad Smith. As I mentioned earlier, Kansas City needs some dynamic player in that offense. They lacked it all last year. They don't have it right now at running back. He's a former wide receiver. Tootin, I think, is a hell of a running back, a guy they want in this system. Etienne looked great, but I see a path for Tootin coming too. Jaden Blue, I think, will get that opportunity. Miles Sanders had that run. He fumbled. Javonte did not look good to me. I'm not saying Javonte is going to disappear, but I think Blue will get up. We'll get some action. Excuse me. And lastly, Skatibo. He looked, a little overwhelmed in game one. But if I'm a Tracy truther, I'm scared as shit because I don't think Tracy looked good. I don't think Tracy's the pass catcher that Skatibo is. I don't think he's the goal line back. He did fumble on I believe, a pass reception again. But what was he, like 12 for 24, 2 for 5? I see that Tracy, he really needs a good game this week because eventually Scatterboo's coming.
Yeah, fair enough. I thought it was really interesting. Speaking of running backs that we weren't sure what their role was going to be, the whole Cleveland situation was kind of fascinating to me. Cincinnati has recently had a history of just laying eggs in week one, but I think Cleveland had something to do with that. On defense, I thought their defense looked good. They've got some good names, some good playmakers there. So I think the Cleveland defense might end up being a tough one to go against for fantasy. And on
their games are going to be ugly, Dan. The Browns games are going to be ugly.
They are, but
the Browns honestly, do own the Bengals for some reason.
Yeah,
they kind of have their number.
And on the offensive side, we had Fannin over Njoku. We had Tillman over Judy, and we had Sampson over Ford, which we talked about a little bit. But, I mean, to me, all 3 of those guys coming through is surprising. It wouldn't have surprised me to see one of them come through. 2 coming through would have been a little bit surprising, but not too bad. But all three of those guys just kind of coming through and dominating, who looked like they were going to be, have the bigger role and all that. Any thoughts on the Cleveland offense there, guys?
Yeah, for me, Dan, the Cedric Tillman thing, that was one of the guys I identified as someone being really mispriced. I don't know if we all just as a fantasy community forgot about the last half of last year with Tillman and how he was coming on and emerging and the talent that he was. He was putting up some decent games last year, real nice numbers. Then we come into the season and he's like 125, 150 overall on every draft board, never moved up. I thought he was the ideal wide receiver 5 for a lot of builds. Ironically enough, the last 2 weeks, every draft I'm going in, I'm getting Cedric Tillman or Hollywood Brown as my wide receiver 5 in that range. Obviously, Hollywood Brown didn't expect everything to unfold the way it did, but now he's looking like the biggest week 1 winner. If you had him at his reduced cost. And Tillman, I thought should have been a top 100 wide receiver. I thought he belonged in like the 80s and 90s. And then he comes out, he gets 8 targets week 1. I'm not saying he's the top guy in Cleveland's offense, but I think he's a 1B to Judy's 1A there. And I think he's a useful piece that you can actually put in your starting lineup as a flex player going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got plenty of shares of Tillman to go with my Judy shares, not same teams, but different teams. I got, plenty of Sampson, plenty of Fannin. I'm just surprised that it's worked out so well for him, just right off of week 1. And I think to your point, Chris, Tillman probably would have jumped up a good bit higher if people weren't so scared about the quarterback situation there. I think that's what kind of held his price down and even Judy's price down.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dan, being that you mentioned the Browns and Fanning, from an FFPC perspective, I was shocked on Wednesday night when the waivers ran. I mean, I was bidding like $250, $300 on Fanning, and I way overbid. And I was watching in like that last week. He was steaming up, going anywhere 13th, 14th round. And I just thought there was going to be a lot of excitement or at least, some high bids on him. I mean, I did win a coin toss at like 249, the virtual coin toss, whatever. So I was happy about that. But for the most part, it was like I overpaid, but I'm pretty happy. And I think, I think he's got – they called him – what did they call him? The queen on the chessboard all summer? That was kind of their thing.
Yeah.
And the hype was real. The hype was definitely real around Fannin after 1 week. I don't know what that does for Njoku.
I think he's a problem for Njoku and Judy.
Yeah.
I think if I've gotten Njoku and Judy, I'm not happy with that situation because I think that kid's going to be a real problem, and I think Tillman's the outside guy in that offense.
What I will say about
the tight end position, as we got to the final week or two of fantasy drafts, just nobody wanted a tight end, and I thought the value was there. It looked Njoku was always going after 110 overall every draft. Tucker Kraft, the same thing. Now, I like the way Tucker Kraft came out the first week. TJ Hawkinson was falling down the board. Laporta was going a round and a half later than his ADP was in every draft. Tight end was just getting pushed down and down and down. And, when you were on the board in those rounds, round 10, 11, 12, the receivers didn't look good. The running backs were all backups. And then you had these tight ends that you were like, oh, my God, I could get a David Njoku to fill out my starting team. It might be fool's gold, for Njoku. I don't know what, your guys' preference was at the tight end position. I'm going to assume, Nelson, I'm going to assume for you that you were a wait on tight end guy again this year. Maybe didn't jump up and get the big 3. Dan, Matt, I don't know what you guys were doing, but I was hitting tight end in that 100 to 150 overall range, putting 2 guys in. My top guy was Tyler Warren. I'm thrilled with what I saw with Tyler Warren. I was moving him up. If I didn't get Tyler Warren in the 80s and jump him a little bit, I sat back and I got a collection of Njoku, Kraft, Pitts, Kincaid, probably missing 1 or 2 guys there. But that was the tight end strategy for me. But Njoku, the teams that I have him on, I'm already trying to figure out what I'm going to do week 2.
Yeah, but in the NFFC, Chris, to your point, it just allowed you, if you didn't take a Bowers or a McBride or Kittle, just wait because it was there all summer.
It was always there.
Not even worse, as you said.
Yeah.
So that was just something that you were just able to do. The one thing I will say about Njoku is he ran all the routes. So if you look at a route participation, that was strong for him. Judy seemed like he came out like lackluster, like he didn't care. I don't want to say didn't care, and I don't like using that with pro athletes. But, he kind of salvaged something at the end, catching that 25-yard pass. But he had a couple of drops. It was not his best day.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing to just keep in mind, Stefanski after the game, talking about Harold Fannin, he says, well, it's game dependent. He has a lot of versatility in his game. We're going to find ways to use him, but very, very game dependent. So I guess that's, just kind of the, tap the brakes a little bit on Fannin, that he might not be all that every week, but, you really have to love what you saw there. And to Chris's point in the NFFC, it was pretty clear going into the final draft weekend that tight ends were, had already been pushed down already, but they were getting pushed down even further. In the draft that Chris and I were in, we both had the same strategy. It was 11th round or something like that, 12th.
Oh yeah. We waited real late, me and Dan, to get tight end, and then we double tapped in like rounds 12 and 13 back to back. And Dan, I think it was Goddard and Jake Ferguson you got back to back, and I took Kincaid and Pitts, and I'm happy with that. I did that on a handful of teams, just wait on tight end, punt it, and put Kincaid and Pitts together, and just hope for the resurrection of for the two of them, because those are the two hot names last year that killed everybody. And I'm just hoping that I'm a year off. And after week 1, they both gave 14 fantasy points, I think, each. And they both look like they were, solid pieces in both their offenses. The Pitts thing was, I was in on Pitts the last month and a half. I really thought Mooney might go on IR. I looked at this offense. I said, I don't know if Pitts is ever going to be what people thought he was. He probably isn't. But in this Atlanta offense, there's nobody else other than London. And Pitts had to fall into double-digit point games, at least early in the season. And then I'd figure it out after that. The biggest winner, I think, after tight end was, again, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce going around a pick 100, 110 every draft. People, saying, all right, he's washed. I don't want him. People were fading him as usual. And, after week 1, he's looking like he'll probably be, for a month here, Mahomes' top target.
And he got, what's his name, killed. He got Worthy killed. He ran that route.
No, he killed Worthy.
Yeah, he killed Worthy.
He killed Worthy.
He was supposed to clear out that route, and James just bullied him right back in there, and Worthy got
Nelson, who's your highest owned tight end?
It's Kraft and Pitts.
Kraft and Pitts. Okay, I'm with you with Kraft. Mine are Tyler Warren and Tucker Kraft.
Yeah.
Dan, what about you?
I got Hunter Henry
and Pat Freiermuth. Awesome.
I'm not that high on Freiermuth. It was a nice speculative pick late, but safe to say it didn't work out. No, I got Hunter Henry. I got a ton of Henry. I have possibly, unfortunately, a ton of Kittle, and I also have a ton of Juwan Johnson, who is looking pretty sweet.
Oh, that was some elite usage.
Damn it! Listen, that's my. You know what? You struck a nerve with me, Dan. Nobody was drafting Juwan Johnson. I took Juwan Johnson in New York in 3 drafts, 20th round, New York Super. I was like, nobody's touching this guy. He's the perfect backup tight end for my team. Why is he going undrafted? There was one other guy at tight end that was going undrafted. Oh, Jatavion Sanders for Carolina. These 2 guys weren't being drafted at all. They're on a lot of my teams in the 19th, 20th round. I went and made the mistake of dropping Juwan Johnson on Saturday night in a handful of leagues. And then on Sunday, he drops that game. I think he was tight end 1.
And he almost had that touchdown pass at the end of the game.
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. I know. I saw that. But he's going to be popular this week in Fab.
All right. Well, let's Nelson. What else you got here?
What are we talking? Just like observations?
Another observation.
Any more observations on the week? Anything else that kind of made sense to you, or didn't?
Or didn't make sense? I mean, No, I mean, I try not to overreact to week one usage and everything. I pay, obviously you pay attention to it. It's nice having, the counting stats there for your teams, but at the same time, like, it was a low scoring week. I believe until the Sunday night game, every game went under except the lowest scoring game
Jets
of the
Steelers.
week.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I was laughing at that all day long.
That shit's crazy. I'm telling
It
you.
really is. It was bizarro world in week one already, and it had me shaking my head. I said, "Are we going to go in for another year like this?" Every game, like you said, Nelson, was a low-scoring, gross game, stats-wise, everything. And then the Jet-Steeler game that everybody was like, "Oh, that's going to be a 13-10 slugfest."
Stay away from it.
It was a shootout.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, funny story on that Jets game too. I put money on the under, or so I thought. I ran up to the betting window, and I was already kind of running late to get over to where I was going to watch the games at. So anyway, I run over to the betting window and I put down my bet, and I said Jets Steelers under. He put in Jets Steelers over. I checked my tickets and somehow I missed that it was over. So I ran. I was like, okay, looks good. Ran off to the game and everything. I thought I had lost that bet, and then I'm sorting through my tickets at the end, and all of a sudden I see, oh, Jets Steelers over. What?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have the opposite luck of you, Dan, usually. So
yeah.
I will say one observation too was what I don't know. I think the Dolphins are toast, man.
Oh my God.
McDaniels.
How do you go into that?
The first
how do you go into that game and you're down 30-0 in that game? Like
trash.
Man, I think McDaniel's overrated. I think that offense is ready to implode. I don't know.
I don't think they
He's an
respect him at
offensive
all.
coordinator. He's McDaniel. Every time, this is what happens in the NFL now. If you have success as an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, you then become a head coach. And you know what? Some of these guys are just meant to be capped out as the offensive coordinator or the defensive. Mm-hmm. Not everybody
Absolutely.
has the chops to be the leader of men and a head coach. There's no better example than McDaniels, as he's going to be an offensive coordinator for the next 15, 20 years in the NFL. And then some team's going to be dumb enough when he has success there to make him a head coach again. The guy's not a head coach. He doesn't have the respect of the team. It's a circus over there. And that's pretty much it. That team is a 3-win team. That was my biggest bet of the season. I like to play my season win totals early in the year. Dolphins under 8.5 wins is my biggest play. And that team is dog shit. The Colts were my biggest bet in week one as well. So
Nice.
Going nowhere fast.
Being that game was mentioned, that was my last observation. It's a hat tip to Dan on this. And basically, Tyler Warren did crush Josh Downs. Nelson said Pittman would be the number one wide receiver. That game he was. I'm hoping that Downs is more that he missed a lot of the preseason. Again, this is a guy who's pretty much up there with Puka Natas in London in targets per share. He's a top 5 separator from the slot. And that game script that game was over. I mean, the Colts basically ran the ball the rest of that game. I mean, that was kind of wild. And just lastly, real quick, Trevor Lawrence is an awful quarterback. I mean, people will keep on. I wish Mac Jones.
I'm guilty of that. I bought into that. I'm not going to overreact on 1 week because that game was really messed up, Matt. The weather delay. They didn't have to play fast versus that Carolina shit. Carolina had the ball a lot. It was a game flow thing. I'm not going to overreact, but I'm not going to say you're not right with the Trevor Lawrence take. I still think with Hunter being in this offense now and Cohen in control of it, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a solid fantasy quarterback.
I hope so, Chris. I'm hoping so for my.
Let's not bury him because of the game.
But just look at the throws. I mean, they were horrible throws.
Sure,
I can't excuse that. And I got BTJ that I'm really counting on. I have some Travis.
I'd be worried. I'd be worried about Brian Thomas. No joke. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I know it's 1 week, and like Nelson said, this is not overreaction Monday. But I'm just saying, I think if we could redo it again, that maybe all those other guys, I would definitely take Puka over Brian Thomas. I would take Nico over Brian Thomas. But listen, all the wide receivers.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I think here's my point.
I agree with Puka. I was like, all right, I can see that.
Okay,
so slow down.
Why do
that
you
offense?
What's the take with Nico? I know he didn't do much, but
I mean, here's the thing. With Lawrence, I looked at it. He got the targets at least. It was just Lawrence was throwing it over his head. He was wide open. With Houston, it was more of the fact that like Nico's just out there running around and like they're not. He wasn't the focal point of the offense. And you would think with like Kirk's
they have
out,
nobody else. He has to be the focal point of the offense.
He has to. That's what I thought. He has to be,
and he wasn't.
And he wasn't.
Well. Just getting back, let me ask one question. It is one game, and I really hope Trevor Lawrence rebounds and Cohen, this great offensive mind, straightens him out. But, I mean, the passes, like I said, I wish Mac Jones was quarterback in the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really do. And
well, he's gone. So he can't quarterback them anymore.
No, I know. He might be quarterbacking Sunday versus the Saints.
Yeah. Dan, throw up that comment from Franz there because I think that'll be a little, that rumor is going to keep getting hot. With Tyreek Hill. Listen, Tyreek's out. Welcome to stay in Miami. They want him gone. I think they have a nice piece in Malik Washington that they could admit that they're a dumpster fire in Miami, get a draft pick for Tyreek Hill right now. I wouldn't be shocked if it's an early season trade. And right now, I don't know if Kansas City has any interest. Maybe they don't even want to bring a head case into the locker room, but maybe Mahomes goes to the front office and says, listen, I know how to keep this guy in check. Him and Kelsey will keep him under control, and you bring in a weapon like Tyreek Hill here. These guys know, like a guy like Kelsey, it's his last hurrah. They going for one more Super Bowl run. You bring a familiar face like Tyreek Hill in right now with all the injuries they have and everything with Worthy up in the air. Maybe it makes sense. We've heard it. It's not the first time we've heard it. It's been rumored.
What do you think? What do you think it takes to get Tyreek?
Nothing.
A third?
A third or fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth, fifth. Yeah. They just want him gone, Miami. Right. They don't give a shit. They'll just get rid of him.
If you're Kansas City, that'd be a no-brainer if he's available.
I would think so.
Real Chris
probably still knows the playbook too. Go ahead, Matt.
When you said Puka, I mean honestly, Puka's probably the wide receiver one if Stafford stays healthy. But that's a big if.
And if Puka stays healthy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean Puka's a warrior at least though too.
Yeah.
I love that.
I thought he was done, but he came back right away. His head cracked open and everything. But man, I know I said it earlier, but pretty crazy that all first and second round wide receivers busted week one. Lamb got 18 points. Puka had a nice game, but none of them, unless I'm missing somebody, not one wide receiver in the first two rounds broke 20 fantasy points. Correct?
Yeah, and Sunday night, David Hubbard and I were talking about that. Up until that game, no skill player, running back, wide receiver, or tight end had top 25 points the entire week. So it was just wild.
And then King Henry showed us why we're all idiots as usual, and he should be a top 5 fantasy pick.
Are we buying the Kid Coleman breakout game? I mean, the guy was pretty dominant down the stretch.
I mean, Coleman and Jay Flowers were two guys that I noticed that I thought I really liked the usage. I was wrong on Coleman because I would take him when he fell, but I wasn't bullish on him because I feel like that Buffalo offense was always going to be, throw it to the open guy. But he definitely was being targeted like he's the number one there in that offense. So
that's one thing, like you mentioned earlier, Nelson, about stories being wrong, about this guy being in training camp throughout the preseason. There was, everybody I follow for the Bills, they were basically saying every day he was the best player in camp. He was catching touchdowns every day. So that one drumbeat did actually seem, after week one, turn out to be right. But
I want to mention 3 names here because after you got outside the big wide receivers of the first 6 rounds, and we all saw where the cliff was going. It was like around 65, 70 overall in drafts. And then we were all looking at like what wide receiver outside this top 75 could be a useful piece in fantasy. I think after week 1, there's 3 names that might be hits all season long. Nelson, we talked about Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman's price was wrong. People forget Pittman is a solid wide receiver 1 for his team. He was going in the 90s. He could be productive as a wide receiver 2/3. Deebo Samuel looked really good. He was a full fade for me, Deebo. But late in the draft season, I started getting worried about that with Terry being out all season long. The way they were going to use Deebo, the coordinator having him in mind. And then the third one was it just slipped my mind over
Chris
here. I'm sorry, guys. Pittman.
While Chris is trying to think of that, how about Keyshawn?
I'll figure it out.
How about Keyshawn Boutte as a very late round? I mean, when you're talking about the very depths of the draft, the last 3-4 rounds, there were a lot of people picking up Franklin. There were a few people picking up Boutte. Really, not that many. Who kind of stands out from those very, very late round wide receivers?
I went all in on that. I picked up Troy Franklin anywhere he was available.
He looked good. He looked good to me week 1. I liked what I saw from him. I actually wanted to do just like a little fun go around here. From the Thursday, Friday free look, right? We had some 20-point scorers. What guys or guy sticks the rest of the season? Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen, Hollywood Brown. Those guys all obviously got steamed up because people were taking the points. Mm-hmm. But also the thought you had to have was, okay, what guy do you think continues this momentum, not just, week 1 rental, let me get, the 20 points in my lineup. I wanted to go around with you guys and see, is there a player that you guys think it's a trap, or do you think it's legit?
Yeah.
I'll go Keenan right off the bat. I mean, I was drafting Keenan as he
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I was taking Keenan as he fell all through draft season. And then all of a sudden, he gets that week 1 usage, he jumps way up. I'm like, at this point, I'm not taking any more Keenan. I've already got him so cheap in so many places. Somebody else wants to have him, that's fine. But I wasn't taking him there just because I already had so much. But I think he's the guy who sticks.
You go, Chris.
I got the same answer, honestly. As surprising as that sounds, I just think Keenan Allen, he's got the rapport with Herbert. I don't think he'll have big games like he just did. He'll have some. I'm just saying he'll be a solid PPR, maybe Wan'Dale Robinson-ish this year for that team. He's still a solid underneath wide receiver. I could see him being a 6 for 60 type wide receiver weekly in that Chargers offense. He's got the quarterback attached to him. And I think he's good for like that 12, 14 point type flex wide receiver, and where he was going up until that game, it's a solid pick on the board. And I'm surprised. Hand up, I have no Keenan Allen shares. So opposite of Dan, who was in on him. But I think he's going to be a useful piece. Now, for the next month, who's the top guy out of this group? It's Hollywood Brown by far, in my eyes. But eventually, we're going to look up. It's going to be mid-October. Rice is going to come back. Worthy's going to come back. Hollywood's going to fade. But Hollywood will be locked into my lineups now for the next month.
Yeah, I would say Hollywood, but honestly, I just don't really believe it. I don't think he's really that good.
16 targets, Matt.
That's why I'm saying – he was like, you mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson. He was pretty much Wan'Dale Robinson till like the last play of the game, where I don't know how you leave him wide open when this game, hats off to Pat Mahomes. That game should not have been close, and he actually kept them in that game. But he was 8 of 16 at one point, which seems like impossible to have 8 targets for 16 yards. Mm-hmm. And but if everybody's going to be out, somebody's got to eat. And I think Thornton's more of the deep threat. I don't know what Jalen Royals is yet. So I don't know if he's healthy with the knee. So it looks like it's lining all up for Hollywood.
Yeah. Real quick, around the horn, what are we doing with Pat Mahomes going forward? Is he a top 12 fantasy quarterback, or are we right back to where we were last year, fool's gold again, saying, all right, it's just the name Pat Mahomes. We're sticking him out there. But he's right back to not having Rice. Now doesn't have Worthy. The offense looks like shit. I love the fact that he's now, taking off and running as much as he is. So that's a positive. But where would you rank Mahomes? Inside the top 12 or outside the top 12 for the next month and a half?
I'll put him outside the top 12 for the next month and a half. I don't feel like I've got to start him if I've got a solid backup option. Once Rice and Worthy come back, then, I might change my answer, but that's where I'm at for now.
I'm probably with Dan, and I'm very bullish on Mahomes entering the year. Part of it, too, was the draft, getting Josh Simmons, Jaylen Royals in the 4th round, Rashad Smith in the 7th round. I think they added to the pieces they already had. But again, if these pieces aren't there, it's going to be kind of, tough. I don't know if he can just keep doing it with, these dusty players.
Nelson, what are you doing with him?
I think I'm going to, where I have him on teams, I'm going to play him unless I have what I perceive as a better option in matchup wise. So I'm going to play the matchup game. I think that he had a good first week. He put up like a 30-point game, I think, NFFC, kind of sneaky. But he's lost a lot of he's lost playmakers. He's got Rice, out for the first 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised Worthy, is out for the next, 2-4 weeks or whatever. So I'm going to say that I'm going to play the matchup game and see, if he can prove me wrong and he's a fixture in my lineup.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough, guys. All right. Before we move on to our next topic, we're gonna pay the bills here. We will be right back. Okay, and we are back. So let's kind of turn into we all did a lot of drafting over the last week. Curious who you guys have your bags packed for, and we'll get into who you don't have your bags packed for, but doesn't need to be a huge discussion or anything. But just go around the horn. Give me 3 players that you were stuffing your bags with over the stretch run. Chris.
Let's start with you know what? I'm just gonna go real quick, Dan. Quarterback. I was all in on Mahomes, Dak Prescott, and Joe Burrow is my highest owned quarterback. I'll get into that discussion later. But Burrow, Dak, Mahomes, those are my quarterbacks. Running back, I have all the Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round, all the Jaylen Warren, Tony Pollard, and J.K. Dobbins. They're on all my teams, a combination of those 3 guys. And at wide receiver, I couldn't get enough Jalen Waddle in the 5th round. I couldn't get enough T. Higgins or JSN in the 3rd round. And a lot of Adunze also in that 5th, 6th round with Olave. Tight end Tyler Warren, like I said earlier. So those were my all-in guys this year.
Hey, how crazy was Chris Olave on Twitter? The guy was in the 10th like 4 times. I mean, he did get lit up at one
as
point.
usual.
That was
was
wild.
Yep,
no doubt. All right, Nelson, who were you packing up with?
Quarterbacks. My highest owned quarterbacks are Dak, Drake May, and Trevor Lawrence. At running back, it's Travis Etienne by far. I got 46% of Etienne on teams.
You got to be feeling happy after week 1. No.
That one feels good.
Yeah.
Zach Charbonnet is my 2nd highest owned. and Javonte Williams is my third highest owned at running back. At wide receiver, this one's crazy. It's just the way it worked out. I wasn't going to quit him, but I have Marvin Harrison over 30% at wide receiver. And for a third-round pick, that actually surprised me. Second is Tet McMillan, which also surprised me that I have that much of him. And the third is Ricky Pearsall.
Okay, so let me jump in real quick. Tet McMillan was the hottest name out in Vegas. Mike Santos, shout out to Mike Santos, great dude. Got to spend a lot of time with him out in Vegas. Mike Santos took Tet McMillan in the second round of the Diamond and second round of the Platinum. Now, when I say second round, he took him 13th overall in the Platinum. Now, that's putting your balls on the table right there. He also took him middle of the second round in the Diamond. So he's all in, a top player like Mike Santos. But Tet McMillan was that name that came after JSN, T. Higgins, and Marvin Harrison, middle of the third round. There had to be a wide receiver that came up the board and lived in the third round in Vegas, and that was Tet McMillan. I have no shares of Tet McMillan, so he was a fade for me. We'll see if that works out. But to Nelson's point, Marvin Harrison was also one of my highest owned wide receivers. Probably one of the main reasons why I have no Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, which sounds crazy, because JSN, T. Higgins, and Marvin Harrison were such a priority for me to get as my wide receiver 2 in round 3, because I always made sure I had an RB1 in one of the first 2 rounds. So that's that.
And then to finish off tight end, it's Kraft, Pitts, and Loveland, and Ferguson. Ferguson and Loveland are both around the same spot.
Okay.
All right. My top quarterback, probably to no one's surprise, if you know me very well, was J.J. McCarthy. Just a great combination of cheap price and, I really believe. So got a lot of him. Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts. I got an awful lot of Jalen Hurts as well. Running back, let's see. We got... my most owned are Bashal Tutin, Ollie Gordon, and J.K. Dobbins. I'm highest on them, but pretty close was like Travion Henderson was right up there. Jordan Mason was right up there, and Travis Etienne was right up there as well. So I got a bunch of those. Wide receivers, let's see. We're looking at highest owned Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas. I was taking one of them on pretty much every team. Jamison Williams and Marvin Harrison. And tight end, we had, I kind of went through that. Hunter Henry, Harold Fannin, George Kittle were my top 3.
Matt, what do you got?
What I got on quarterback in high stakes, I pretty much have like 3 Burrows because I got 3 chases. I got a little Lamar, a little Josh, and some Jaylen. In the high stakes, I did invest in the elite quarterback, but if not, Drake May is my most owned, and I tried like pairing him with like a Dak Purdy if I could double tap it, or like a J.J. McCarthy for the upside as well there. Running backs in the high stakes, I really focused on Harvey and Trevion. I just love their spots. So we'll see how that plays out, but I'm very excited for that. I have 4 high stakes shares of Garrett Wilson. I was doing the high stakes earlier, beginning of August, and I stopped drafting him because I got worried when we saw a couple of these preseason games. Tet and Worthy were the other 2 I was all in on. Pray for Worthy. The tight ends in FFPC, I do have some nice shares of Bowers and McBride, but NFFC, Laporter, the Hawkinsons, Tucker Kraft. There's a mix of all those guys because they were just they're all sitting there for you. So, I mean, I think that was it. I mean, Bill, I never drafted him once he went into the single digits, but I think I got like 22 shares of him from around 12 and on. So, for my 350s and a couple of my 4 of my high stakes, I'm hoping he hits. We'll see.
What did everybody do with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson? We always talk about the elite quarterback. Did everybody? I know a couple of you guys just touched on it, but was that a priority? Nelson, were you in on the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, taking them third round, or did you go a different direction a lot?
I ended up going in a different direction. I decided that I started getting comfortable with the wide receivers there in the third round. And for me, it was Harrison, it was McMillan, and it was Garrett Wilson. I felt like those guys, I was willing to be confident that those guys were going to get it done, and I was willing to push back quarterback. In the fourth round, when Lamar snuck in there, Josh Allen snuck in there, I was taking them.
Yeah, so Burrow, Allen or Lamar if they fell. Yeah. See, for me, it was twofold. It was we saw it the same way with the value of getting those receivers. I have to mix in Garrett Wilson as well. I was lucky enough to get 3 or 4 Garrett Wilson shares mid to late third round. So I was always passing on Allen and Lamar. Now, after week 1, I have egg on my face, no doubt about it. It looks like a god-awful decision, especially from someone that loves the elite quarterbacks. But for me, besides the receivers in that third round that I wanted to make sure I got one of them as my number 2 there, it was the fact that I had Joe Burrow ranked ahead of Allen and Lamar. I didn't see any drop-off with those two to Burrow, and I was taking the round and a half discount with Joe Burrow. Again, week 1 looks god-awful when you compare Burrow's game to the other ones, but I think
same as last year though. He was
I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all with Burrow and that Bengal offense at all. But after week 1, it's a terrible decision, but it's week 1. But I just think that Joe Burrow is 5,000 yards, 45 touchdown type potential. And I was taking the extra wide receiver in the third and give me the discount on the quarterback out of the elite guys and give me Burrow mid-late fourth. I moved Burrow up to 29th overall in the diamond and made him my quarterback. That was my guy that I was going to stamp on all my teams to be, the top guy.
What I noticed is you guys aren't in on Jaden Daniels. I mean, I am, but it doesn't sound like you guys.
I am too. Yeah, I'm right there.
I'm not. He wasn't a fade, Matt. He wasn't a fade. I only got 1 share of him. Again, I'd Burrow over Daniels. So
okay.
Yeah, I took the elite quarterbacks when they fell. Otherwise, I was just loading up on wherever the value was in that round. So, But speaking of fallers, real quick, what's who are your fades, or your total fades or a near total fade? And how do you feel about that now, Matt? Why don't you get us started on that?
James Cook to me was my biggest miss here as a fantasy player and as a Bills fan. You saw Sunday night why he is desperately needed on this team. What he does, he has a nose for the end zone. I can't believe he got tripped up and didn't score there again. Him and Breece Hall, Breece Hall I was in on early, like in July, but it's just the whole coaches speak, and even Breece Hall himself was scaring the crap out of me, and I was worried about the burst. So those are 2 that are probably my biggest regrets after watching week 1.
Yep, fair enough. All right. What do you got there, Nelson?
Are we talking about fade regrets, or can we mix them both?
You can mix them both. You can mix your fades, and how do you feel about them?
So at the end of draft season, I had put Breece Hall kind of on my fade list as a guy that I wasn't going to be taking, but I ended up with him when he fell into the 6th round a couple of times, but not nearly enough. So that's one that I regret, not in fading him and not getting in on him when he fell in price. The other regret was JSN because I just didn't
We
believe.
spoke about that, Nelson, with the JSN, and you weren't alone with, the JSN crowd was it was too divided. It was either no way, I'm totally out, quarterback sucks, offense sucks, or how can you avoid the targets? And the guy had 73% in week 1, which was by far the top first read on snaps. And I think that's why I was all in on JSN. But go ahead, Nelson. Sorry.
And that was the logic, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that he was going to get targets, but I felt like it was a run-heavy offense. I felt like Cooper Kupp was going to be enough of a nuisance that I liked other receivers over JSN, is really what it came down to. In the 3rd round, there was just certain guys I had ranked higher than JSN. But I do regret it because it's looking like, even though they are a run-heavy offense, right? And I do think Darnold sucks. Like, both things can be right. I think I was right in the fact that it's a run-heavy offense and Darnold sucks, but I was wrong on the fact that the targets weren't going to matter.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Nelson. Like, if we say something like Javonte Williams, you're in on him because of the volume at the running back position, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be in on a guy like JSN or Garrett Wilson at the wide receiver position for the volume. Maybe the scenario, the story there isn't the best with like a Javonte Williams, but I'm sorry, with JSN and Garrett Wilson, the quarterbacks are the offenses are but when you're the only show in town and you're the legit clear wide receiver 1 on your teams, I'm starting to change my mind that, like, I always like to go give me wide receivers that have really good quarterbacks attached. But you know what? At the same time, we've seen, like you just said, the volume is king in fantasy football.
Yeah.
So give me players that I know are going to see volume week in and week out in their offenses, because we watch too many games every week where it's spread out. Games are slow. There's not enough volume usage. And, I just want my guys getting the hands on the ball every week.
Yeah.
Those guys.
And I think
it comes down to, to me, and Chris, you kind of changed my mind on this. I was out on JSN and then I got in on JSN. And it was twofold. Number one, just the volume. And number two, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I totally believe that Cooper Kupp is done. He sucks. And if I believe that, then I pretty much, that kind of forces me towards JSN, because there's got to be one guy there who's going to be catching those passes, and that's him.
Well, just sticking with Seattle real quick. I mean, what are we thinking about Walker and Charbonnet? Is it just like Charbonnet's got the path to just run off here? Or, does anybody have a...
Walker was a fade for me. And I felt all along that there was more to that foot injury and this whole maintenance plan thing and everything. I just looked at it as like it was all bullshit, and there was more to the story, and that's why he was a fade for me. I just thought that 3rd round and in like early mid 4th round in most drafts I wasn't willing to get behind it. That's why Charbonnet is one of my highest.
Okay, say Walker's the fade. So now you think Sharps is going to just take it over and get like a 70% or is this going to be this 10-12 kind of thing?
I personally think it's going to be like that 50-50 split. I think Seattle wants to keep Walker not on the field all the time because of the foot and all his issues that he's had. So I don't think they want, I think he'll get his touches, but I think they know what they have in Charbonnet. They're going to go to a 1-2 backfield, a 1A and a 1B. It's going to be frustrating for both owners. But if a Walker misses some time, you got a top 10 running back in Charbonnet. And if Charbonnet goes down, then Walker, you're going to have a guy that comes right back into the RB1 conversation. But they're going to kind of cancel each other out. But that's what the NFL and fantasy is now, is that a lot of backfields are, 1-2 punches. And, that team is no different.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, because Charbonnet, it looks like it's going to be the goal line back, and it looks like there's they're going to use Walker for the pass catcher.
I will say this, though, Matt, to answer your question, if that didn't answer your question, I think Walker was a terrible pick on the board, and I think Charbonnet was a great pick on the board. Because now Charbonnet, who was going in the 80s and 90s in every draft out in Vegas, now he's a useful piece that you could sneak in as your RB2 or a flex play. Walker, where you've taken him in the 4th and 5th round, you're like, holy shit, I got a 6 to 8 point running back potentially on my hand, and some guys are sitting with him as their RB1.
Yeah,
So
that's what I found odd, though. Like the last month or so, like I was in on Walker, and then like at a certain point, I was like, much as I love this guy, I got to stop drafting him because he's not practicing. And then we were getting further and further into August. So I thought he would have fell further. Like Breece Hall fell further than Kenneth Walker. I didn't. I thought
Walker never fell.
Yeah.
He didn't go into like the 5th. He was a 4th round.
Nelson, he fell from where he was in July. You know, in July, you know, he was going mid 3rd round, late 3rd round, early 4th, and then he was still on the board in the 50s out in Vegas.
I'm just saying that we got to late August. He wasn't practicing.
Yeah, at that point he wasn't.
And he was still being drafted pretty high.
He was, because I stopped and I was just shocked that he never fell to, you know, I thought they would be like more closer, like both 6th-round picks or something.
Yeah.
That's what.
All right. All right. Let's go quickly and just talk about the waiver wire. Real quick.
Dan, did me or you tell our fades or no?
Oh, I don't know. Did you?
You hit 2 people.
Go for it. Let's be quick though. Let's get these things out of here.
Yeah, real quick for me. My fades at quarterback: Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix. No shares of any of them. Running back: Trevion Henderson. No shares. R.J. Harvey. No shares. James Conner and Alvin Kamara. No shares. And then more importantly, at wide receiver, it was a full fade on all the old men in the 3rd through 5th rounds at the wide receiver position. No Mike Evans, no Devontae Adams, no Terry McLaurin, no DJ Moore, and I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 others, but that was my full fades there.
All right. I was with you on the Mike Evans. He was my full fade from the early rounds. Also, no Derrick Henry. I may regret that, but I felt like I'd regret it more if I took him and then he ends up getting hurt because I know he's a different dude, and but he is also 31 years old, and it's just I can't draft him that high at that age. Omari and Hampton, I faded him pretty hard just because I didn't feel like there was going to be much pass game work there. Just other players I liked better. It wasn't really that Hampton would have been fine, I thought, in the 4th if he'd been going somewhere around like Walker or something like that. But he was going clearly before, so he was a fade there. Probably the fade that scares me the most is I said I was off of Josh Downs, and so and I said it was because of Tyler Warren, but I also faded Tyler Warren because of Josh Downs. I probably should have jumped more on Warren than I did. I couldn't sit there and take Tyler Warren when you got Laporta and Kelsey and Hawk all going around the same place, and I can grab Tucker Kraft a couple 3 rounds later. So that's kind of why I faded him. But
Dan, being that you mentioned the Colts, here's my question after watching that game. They scored on every drive. I mean, they're like the first time since 1990 they did that. Miami's terrible. Are the Colts that good? We're going to find out this week. They get Denver coming in. I'll say this, as I took the big L this past week 1. Look at the over-under on receiving yards for Josh Downs. If there is a low 3 or if Dare goes into the 2, bet the over. That's my betting advice, because I think he's going to get a real smush number this week.
All right, let's get into the waiver wire. Nelson, I want to start with you because you've got, I think, some extra help available for people. If you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll all dive in a little.
Yeah, over at FTN Fantasy, I have my Fab waiver wire article that I do every week, and this year I have ownership percentages broken down for NFFC, and then for tight ends, I do FFPC because it's a little bit different ball game with the tight end situation, where at NFFC you're not looking as deep into the tight end pool. So I have that available every week. I put in dollar projections of what I think guys are worth and what they're going to go for in order to acquire them. So you can definitely go to FTN Fantasy for that.
It's called Nelson's Notebook.
Yes.
And like I said, you want to just see what Nelson's thinking. Everybody else is going to be looking at that. I mean, it's worth it just on that alone.
Yeah, it definitely is. And then the Discord that Nelson has as well, I think is also a real value for subscribers there. So let's talk, a little bit about the waiver wire, all that. Any quick strategy or advice? I mean, nobody needs to give up their state secrets here. But in general, what's the plan this week for your teams? How are you deciding on bid amounts? Just any kind of general help that you have on the waiver wire. Let's run around the horn. Nelson, why don't you jump in first?
Yeah, so for me, I tend to be conservative in the first couple of weeks of the season. I try not to jump to and look at the box scores. I think there's going to be some guys that are going to go for more money than they deserve, and there'll be other guys that fly under the radar. So for me, it's more of I'm probably going to be gravitating towards the guys that fly under the radar, except for you're going to have a couple of one or two outliers that are guys that are kind of highly owned that are available in leagues. That's the guys that you probably want to fire on if they're a legit player. And then the other thing with like the waiver wire is I don't necessarily identify weaknesses this early in the season on teams. I just want, for my bench, I just want 10 good players. And I don't necessarily worry about ratio as far as how many running backs, how many wide receivers I have at that point. I just want the best 10 players possible and then let them fight it out. Whereas during draft season, I do focus on that a little more with structure, where it's like, okay, I want 7 to 8 running backs. I'm good with like 6 wide receivers. Once the season starts, I kind of, it's just give me the best players. I'm not going to sit there if I identify that running back's a weakness and there's a legit wide receiver target. I'm not putting, so running backs ahead of that very good wide receiver. I'll continue to try to add to the wide receiver group also. So those are my takeaways from Fab.
All right, fair enough. And, I think to that point, you do want to look at every team, see what the weaknesses are, see how you can address it on the waiver wire. But a couple things I look at is if a player's performance that's on the waiver wire kind of confirms what I was already thinking, then I'm willing to bid more. If it's kind of out of left field, I'm not going to bid a bunch of money on them just because, they had a good week one, especially if I still don't really understand the thesis behind it. I gotta be able to understand that thesis and be able to put something in. And in general, I tend to be like Nelson. I tend to be fairly conservative early unless there's, some player that just really sticks out like a sore thumb, in which case everybody's going to be bidding bid on them. But that, for the most part, that's not going to be me. I would rather be ahead of the curve, like what Nelson's talking about, and bidding on the under the radar guys. And, once a guy is totally obvious and he's going to be going for hundreds of dollars, I'm probably out. Most of the time, those guys don't work out as well as we hope. So, I'm just not going to jump in on that. And in general, I try to think about every bid as in, for this team, what number am I comfortable losing the player at? Like if I bid, $150 or something out of $1,000 budget, am I comfortable if I lose the player do I feel like I put in a good enough bid? Because I don't really worry too much about overbidding if I'm really strong on the player. If I win them by $100 or something like that, if I bid 200 and you only went for 100, I'm not too concerned about that. If I'm really strong on the player, I feel good about the bid. But otherwise, I'm not really too worried about overbidding as long as I feel good about, hey, if I lose the guy at this price, I'm fine with it.
For me, I'm kind of the opposite. Like last Wednesday, if I saw guys that could be difference makers that I could buy, that I think are going to be effectful for my team, I was in on them. There were 3 of them last week. I would say for this week, look at the drops, because I'm in a lot of leagues and stuff, and there's some guys that were dropped that I was like, whoa, okay, look at that. For me this week in like FFPC, there's one tight end that if he's out there, you just got to be really aggressive after the week 1 usage. Everybody knows who it is. It's Jawan Johnson. So we're not keeping trade secrets there. Anybody that's got a half a brain knows that. And, for NFFC, you want the upside, running back guy that's been to stash, or the wide receiver who is, seems to be at least trending like, big booty over there. You look at his last 4 or 5 games, he's got a nice trend. How much is he going to go for? I think he's going to be more than I'm willing to pay. I'll say that. But will I be involved? Probably, but not at the price that it'll probably take to win him.
I thought the overreaction, the prices were crazy on that last Wednesday. Everybody that went through the summer and on Ollie Gordon, 400, 500, 600 before the season even kicks off. It's crazy, Now you look up.
He's a backup.
And he's a back. I have no problem dropping a bag on anybody that emerges that is like an instant day one start. Like if Etienne went down and Ollie Gordon was coming into the year as the starter, I have no problem dropping 600-700 on him right off the bat and leaving myself short for the whole season. But we have a backup. People are taking shots on backups to backups for 300, 400. Isaac Tesla was going for 400, 300, 500. What are we doing here? Mm-hmm. We're in the phase now. We're at the part of fantasy where everybody starts off with their $1,000 and now they just want to fire it. They're in the strip club. They just want to. They don't want to.
Our last show, Chris, before Vegas, I think people misunderstood me. I said if there was an injury that Tesla would go for $500. I didn't say bid $500 on Tesla going into week 1.
I think they misunderstood, Nelson. So those prices were crazy. I didn't get anybody on that Wednesday. I thought my bids were pretty good too, but no, I pretty much went home empty on that. Listen, I'm not conservative. If I see an opportunity, I'll blow a lot of money, but coming into week 1 here, after week 1, I'll be pretty conservative here. There's nobody that is going to get a big bid from me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, totally.
I'm waiting. Like Matt touched on, nowadays, it's not so much what you see on the waiver wire. I've been saying this. It's not so much when you look at your waiver wire in these high-stakes leagues, you're like, oh, my God, look at all this talent out there. No, there's on a weekly basis, there's shit out there. What I'm waiting on is for that 1 or 2 week player in my leagues to make a bad drop, get a little, impatient, and then that's the guy I'm looking to pounce on. So everybody is in a league where during the course of a year, there's 1 or 2 bad drops, and then I got to be ready to take advantage of that.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
I have a quick question for all you guys because we were in Vegas and then that CMC news dropped. I think Thursday it was with the calf, and everybody went scrambling and panicking. Did any of you guys get second round McCaffrey, and what was your strategy in drafts once that injury news popped up midweek last week?
I'll say real quick, I took him at the GST. I wanted to share in high stakes. I got the 7th pick for that. and then the news came out the following week, and it wasn't somebody I was going to, get over invested in. But again, he turns up and gets the most touches in the NFL with 31.
So, Nelson, where were you on him?
So like I was fading him for the most part, but I also put on my fade list that just the sheer volume that I was going to do. There's outcomes of him being the RB1 this year. So in a lot of the tournament formats, I'm going to take him a few times because there is that possibility, even though I wanted to be cautious with him. Once that news came out and he dropped, from a game theory perspective, for me, like, again, I'm doing a high volume of teams. I drafted him quite a bit the final few days when that news came out, because I paired him with Jamar Chase on a team. I paired him with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Is that in a prime time? You got 124?
It's honestly it's all together. It's a main event. I just can't remember if it's FFPC or if it's NFFC.
Okay.
But I ended up.
I didn't see any Chase CMC combos, and I was waiting for it. I was waiting for that next day. I think it was Friday when everybody was drafting. And I was like, someone's going to let him fall, because I watched him fall to 21, 22, 23. So there is a Bijan CMC team out there. There's a Lamb CMC team I remember seeing out in Vegas. Those are scary now. Those are the scary ones. And that's why I came in on the CMC the last 2 or 3 days. I really didn't want CMC this year. I wasn't full fading him, but he wasn't going to be on many of my teams at all. But once that injury happened and it was a guessing game, I was like, all right, you got to differentiate somehow, and you got to roll the dice. And if you play a little volume for guys like us, it's a combination you got to be aggressive on and go after. And I did.
To take a page out of Maddie's book, I was willing to follow on that knife. I look at it as
I never really had the chance. I had like 11, 12 picks where he was available. And to me, picking him at the 11 or 12, the 201, 202, there wasn't really enough of a difference from, what we'd been seeing earlier, because there's plenty of CMC out there that's, late first. And, whether he's late first, early second, I don't think really makes that much of a difference to me. Every time I had a pick, later on in the second round, he was gone before he got to me. So I never got to make that choice, but I did watch one team draft. I was sitting at the 12 hole. Me and Theo were drafting a team together, and we didn't take him at the 12 hole. So he goes all the way back to the drafter with the 102. So, and then Jonathan Taylor fell to that same drafter in the third. So he's got a Gibbs, CMC, JT team, which is just scary.
Whoa.
You guys all know who it is too. It's David Hubbard. So yeah,
good old Hubbard.
Yep, he'll definitely take that value every time. All right, guys.
If you're doing any kind of volume, just strategy wise, that's where you gotta. It's two ways of looking at it. You're possibly burning a team, taking them, but at the same time, you got to take advantage of everyone being scared in the draft room and potentially putting together some monster teams.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go and take their one fantasy team or two fantasy teams and blow it with a McCaffrey for those 3 days, 3 days, and then you find out McCaffrey, calf injury, IR, and then so you got to take advantage of that. So
if you're at the 11 or 12 spot, what would you guys have done in the second round if McCaffrey's there? Are you taking him, or is that kind of dependent on who else is there?
Dan, I took him actually in our draft. I was sitting right next to you in the 11 hole, and I took wide receiver at 11, and I was hoping that the guy in the 12 hole, I left Genty and Drake London on the board for him. I was hoping that he was going to take somebody other than the two of them, because then that would have been my pick at 14, and he doubled up with London Genty. And I said, all right, you know what? Give me second round McCaffrey, I understand all your guys' points when you get later in the first round that the combinations are different. But I'll take Nico Collins and CMC combination. It's not going to be highly owned. McCaffrey was going as a top 7 player for the last 3 weeks. So,
yeah,
I took it.
I'll take the healthy, productive combination, over the, different. And I know we all want to be different, but sometimes that, but like Nelson said, if you're doing the volume, absolutely. Yep. But I want healthy, productive players first and foremost.
What about you,
after
Nelson?
week 1, you got the healthy, productive player, and you got the dip. No. Good to me.
I mean, again, we've said it all along. Well, he could literally be the 1-1 if he plays all his games. That's the most realistic outcome.
Yeah. Nelson, what would you have done at the 11 or 12 if you had a chance for him in the second round? Taking him or not?
I would have taken him because I'm looking back at some drafts, prime times that I did the last few. So that would be like Saturday, Friday, Thursday. And I had like an 11 hole. I took Malik Neighbors and McCaffrey was there, but it was a huge wide receiver run. So McCaffrey and Genty were there. And I said, okay, if the 12 hole goes ahead and double taps McCaffrey, Genty, I'm going to end up with Neighbors and Puka, and I'm fine with that. What I didn't want to do was, okay, I take McCaffrey here at 11 and he double taps wide receiver. I don't want McCaffrey Genty. It was my thought process. Not saying there's anything bad with it. I wanted one of those receivers. Like I wanted Neighbors or Puka, and that was all that was left. So I'm like, I'm getting one of them. Like I'm pretty sure this guy in the 12 hole is gonna take Puka with either McCaffrey or Genty. So I would have taken McCaffrey.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, guys. Well, we've been at it for over an hour and 40 minutes. I think we've covered everything pretty thoroughly, but just want to say to our audience, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to have more of this. Yes, we're back, and we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis. It'll be a combination of therapy session and strategy session, and who knows what else, but we'll give you all the good stuff, that's for sure. And if you have any ideas, any topics, anything like that you want us to cover, feel free to drop one of us a note or whatever. No guarantees, but we definitely might use it. And good luck to everybody this week. Hope you have a successful waiver run, and we hope that you have a big week for your players, and we will see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.